The next item on the agenda is item 4, set for 9:15 a.m. or thereafter, introductions of an ordinance calling for a special election to be held on March 4th, 2025, for the purpose of voting on an amendment to the San Mateo County Charter, granting the Board of Supervisors authority to remove an elected sheriff for cause by a 4/5 vote, and others associated matters, and waiving the reading of the ordinance in its entirety. This item is sponsored by Supervisor Corzo and Supervisor Mueller. Supervisor Corzo and Mueller, I will ask you for any introductory remarks that you may want to offer.
I can go first, okay. So today's proposed charter amendment gives a voice to voters in response to the crisis to public safety created by dysfunction in the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, as set forth in Judge Cordell's 400-page report. The proposed charter amendment asks voters to give the Board of Supervisors authority to remove the sheriff from office if conditions set forth in the charter amendment are met. And as my colleagues saw, those conditions are a violation of any law related to the performance of the sheriff's duties, flagrant or repeated neglect of the sheriff's duties as defined by law, misappropriation of public funds or property as defined in California law, or willful falsification of a relevant official statement or document, and then finally, obstruction as defined in federal, state, or local law applicable to a sheriff of any investigation into the conduct of sheriff and or the San Mateo County Sheriff's Department by any government agency, including the County of San Mateo office or commission with jurisdiction to conduct such investigation. The proposed charter amendment, if those conditions, additionally, the grant of power in the charter amendment is specific to this immediate crisis, as it sets forth a sunset provision expiring at the time of the next general election in 2028. I wanted to go ahead and share with my colleagues why the sunset clause was included. Given the short schedule for debate of this charter amendment, and it's an incredibly abbreviated schedule, we thought it was necessary to include the charter amendment, to include the sunset provision, as it seems most reasonable to fashion the amendment in a way best characterized as a temporary grant of power to protect the public safety, rather than a more permanent change to the charter that some would allege was using this instance as a power grab. And so what we really want to say to the voters is we're giving you a voice in this specific circumstance, in these highly unusual conditions, to give the board the ability to act, but it is specific to this circumstance. I think we're best served to keep our eyes fixed on this crisis in front of us in urgency, rather than be pulled by distraction into debate a general policy. And I think the sunset provision provides that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass. Oh, there was one last note. In public comment, there was some discussion about this process being somehow race-based. And I want to point out that Judge Cordell is a woman of color who conducted this investigation. Mr. Tapia, who is here today, is a man of color. And Supervisor Corzo, I highly respect you as a woman of color. So I know in my heart that's not the case. And I know if Judge Cordell was here to defend her report, she also would make that case strongly. Supervisor Corzo.
Thank you. I'll start by saying that we are bringing this to the board because it is absolutely necessary. We are going to face some difficult times very, very soon. As Californians, as Americans, it does not benefit our community to have the type of chaos that we see happening right now at the sheriff's office. It's not something anyone here wants to deal with, but it is our duty to lead and to deal with this. We were also elected to be a voice for our community members, and we are responsible for the safety net of this county, the safety net services, and for protecting our most vulnerable. And right now, what's happening at our sheriff's office is impacting and negatively impacting public safety. While it may be true that certain people or communities have seen improved conditions, that is not the case for everyone, and most definitely not the case for both administrative and sworn staff in the sheriff's office who are working under duress, working under conditions that no one should be exposed to. We continue to hear of people leaving the sheriff's office because of the dysfunction there. It's not something that we would bring to the board if we didn't have to, if we didn't feel like our community absolutely needed this. This ordinance, again, is an urgent response to what is happening right now in our sheriff's office. It's our duty to protect all county staff, all county residents. And right now, there's concern about that. We have worked tirelessly with county leadership, county council. We've looked to other jurisdictions for models of how we can lead our community through this. And this is something that we intend to take to the voters so that they can make their voices heard. We are in extremely unique circumstances, and I'll detail some of those in just a bit. But I want to speak to this ordinance and what it does. It only allows for the removal of a sheriff in certain instances where serious wrongdoing has been found that jeopardizes public safety and trust. And these are violation of the law related to the performance of a sheriff's duties, flagrant or repeated neglect of a sheriff's duties, misappropriation of public funds or property, willful falsification of an official statement or document, obstruction of any investigation into the conduct of a sheriff. We have gotten some concerns about diluting the voice of the voters, and I want people to know that we hear that concern, but when we place something on the ballot, it will be the voters that decide whether it is passed or not. And I want people to understand, what a recall effort actually takes. For those who have been involved in recalls, it is not a simple lift. It is not something that is done overnight. In this case specifically, a recall effort by the community, by our voters, would take nearly 45,000 signatures just to place on the ballot. It is, for us as a board, for me as a county supervisor, to think that we would wait until our community finds the time and the energy to collect 45,000 signatures when we know that the need to remove this sheriff right now is absolutely urgent. It's just not a viable option. If that is what has to happen, then I would support that. But right now, I see it clearly as it being our duty as a board of supervisors to offer solutions to our community. And this is one that meets the urgency of the facts that we are presented with right now. And honestly, March is not soon enough for what's happening right now. But let me be very clear, public safety is at stake right now. And this is absolutely necessary. And the ordinance has been drafted with limited powers, with a sunset clause in it, which gives checks and balances. And what makes this situation unique is that right now we have a sheriff that has a 6-year term, which is not, it's not 4 years. An additional 2 years is, it's a longer term than most sheriffs. And I will tell you this also. I've been an elected official now for 7 years. I take this job extremely seriously, as I did when I served on the school board. With the trust of the voters comes great responsibility. And it's not something that any ethical elected official uses to personally benefit themselves. And right now, we have a sheriff that does not hesitate to lie to the media, to lie to our community, to divide the Latino community, as we saw from a public comment earlier today, based on lies. So this charter amendment is something that I think the voters have a right to vote on, should have a right to vote on. Let them be presented with all of the facts themselves. Let them read the report. Let them decide what is best for our community. Our sheriff was elected by the people, and the people will make the ultimate decision here. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions for Supervisor Slocum or Supervisor Pine or other board members? Okay, seeing none, if we can move to public comment, Suki, both in chambers as well as remotely.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I do have 2 speakers from chambers, and then we'll take comments from Zoom, and then I do have 1 additional written comment. We'll start with the Deacon, Lauren McCombs, followed by Brian Howe.
Good morning to the Board of Supervisors and all others present. My name is Deacon Lauren Patton McCombs, and I'm a member of Fixing San Mateo. I want to start by saying my thoughts and prayers are with all parties involved in this unfortunate unfolding of events within the Sheriff's Office. The findings of the report released about Sheriff Corpus and her staff was extremely alarming to our greater community. Many state officials have asked for her resignation in order to prevent further damage to the organization, as well as to protect public safety. There are 12 serious allegations of misconduct that undermine the moral integrity of the Sheriff's Office and the deputies who are dedicated to serving our county. Where is the trust and transparency that the Sheriff ran her campaign on in 2022? Please follow Warren Slocum's, who stressed that the time is now to make the imperative decision to have a completely independent oversight commission as well as a permanent inspector general. And I would like to thank the Board of Supervisors for their time in serving our county.
Thank you. Brian Howe.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Brian Howell. Sure. As a proud Redwood City native and a teacher in our community for the last 20 years, I've had the privilege of knowing remarkable individuals dedicated to serving others. I first met Sheriff Corpus 20 years ago as a 2nd grade teacher at Fair Oaks Elementary School. I was a new 2nd grade teacher and she was a new Sheriff's Resource Officer at the school. Awkward. From the beginning, Sheriff Corpus exemplified resilience, bravery, and integrity. Her unwavering dedication to reform and make positive changes, even in the face of relentless opposition and personal attacks, has been nothing short of inspiring. She refuses to be intimidated and continues to prioritize the needs of both the department and the citizens of San Mateo County. The decision to remove Sheriff Corpus should rest solely with the voters, not with a handful of individuals relying on possible amplified fabricated stories. Attempts to fire Sheriff Corpus undermine the democratic process and insult the will of the people who place their trust in her leadership. The citizens of San Mateo County deserve the right to decide if these accusations hold merit. Please don't take away my vote or the people's voice. let democracy prevail, and it sounds like kind of that's where we're already on the route to do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. No additional speakers from chambers. So Madam Clerk, please proceed.
This time we have 9 hands raised and counting. We're at item number 4. Please do continue to raise your hands because the Vice President could make a final call for raised hands at any time. We are at Dan Stejing, followed by the Millbrae Anti-Racist Coalition. Dan Stejing, please unmute and begin.
Thank you. Can you hear me, council members? Supervisor?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. I think it was Barack Obama who said elections have consequences. I've calculated this is probably going to cost the county $4.8 million. I'd remind county council and elections that it's not legal to poll on the recall or charter ballot question. I have an unusual viewpoint having run against a previous sheriff and for the supervisor seat. I think you've got a labor problem and a campaign promise problem. And I'd like to see the charges against Carlos Tapia dropped. I'd like to see the county sit down in mediation with both the Fixing San Mateo people and the DSA and get this solved in a way that doesn't involve our entire county being laughed at nationally. Usually we see self-dealing in investigation situations. There's no evidence of it here. Thank you.
Thank you. 10 hands, Millbrae Anti-Racist Coalition, followed by Samina Usman. Coalition, please unmute and begin.
Good morning, supervisors. My name is Michael Kelly. I'm sorry that it showed up as the Anti-Racist Coalition. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. It is deeply disturbing that some of you supervisors are participating in this highly inappropriate effort for the removal of our Honorable Sheriff, Christina Corpus. It is apparent to everyone that's paying attention that the results of this massively biased special investigation are part of a political hatchet job orchestrated by the cronies of disgraced ex-sheriff Bolanos and his cohorts that remain on the county payroll. Ex-Judge Cordell would not allow testimony from many sworn officers that wanted to share their vastly positive experiences. She only heard from the ones with an agenda to take Sheriff Corpus down. Our sheriff has attained the historically highest and fastest growth rate ever of filling the longstanding vacancies of the deputies, increasing public safety. They want to work for her for good reason. Supervisor Corzo, Supervisor Mueller, along with Fix and SMC, you have been dishonest brokers of information, and many of your comments are reprehensible. The report is corrupt. Please don't waste any more county time and resources on a meritless change to our next voting event. Thank you.
Thank you. For the record, this is Michael Kelly and not the Millbrae Anti-Racist Coalition. Next we have...
Through the clerk,
Yes.
last call for speakers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Members of the public, at this time, a final call is being made for public comment on item 4. On Zoom, please click raise hand and I will announce the final name we'll take for this item. Final call has been made, so after I announce this name, no further hands will be taken for this item. Okay. The last called speaker we had was Stephen Booker, and Elizabeth Quiroz was already called. So those are the final 2. So we have 10 speakers. Those are Samina Usman, Julie Lind, Ron Snow, Chris Cavigioli, Pat Willard, Alberto, James Brown, Albert Yam, and I think we just lost one hand as I was announcing those names. So I will go take a look at what I had logged here. It was a phone caller ending in 357. So I will check on that while we take these names. Samina Usman, please unmute and begin.
Hello, my name is Samina Usman. I'm here on behalf of Secure Justice. Today, I urge you to call for a special election to vote on a proposed amendment to grant authority to remove an elected sheriff for cause and to do so without a sunset clause. Otherwise, we might have to do this again at taxpayer expense. Accountability is a cornerstone of public trust in our democratic institutions, particularly in law enforcement. While elected officials must retain independence, there must also be safeguards to ensure that they act in the best interests of the community. This amendment provides a fair and transparent mechanism to address serious misconduct or dereliction of duty, aligning with principles of good governance. Losing their job is the only real fear an elected sheriff has. And having such authority in your charter will lead to less misconduct by future sheriffs because of the very real possibility that a future board member will remove them. Calling a special election allows for voters of San Mateo County to make their voices heard on these critical issues. I urge you to please vote in favor of this.
Thank you. Julie Lynn, followed by Ron Snow. Julie, please unmute and begin.
Thanks, Sherry. Good morning, honorable supervisors, county manager Callaghan, and staff. My name is Julie Lynn with the San Mateo Labor Council, representing 100 affiliate unions and over 85,000 members and their families countywide, including the San Mateo County Deputy Sheriff's Association. On behalf of our membership, I'd like to thank you all for how you've handled and are continuing to handle this current situation. I know it's not easy on you, just like it's not easy on the folks that I have the honor to represent. Though the pieces on this chessboard seem to be continuously changing, you all have remained committed to transparency, accountability, and to protecting our county and all who live and work within its lines. This ballot measure is another example of that. Our top county safety officer has failed to keep her employees safe, refused to accept responsibility for her actions, and has put our entire community at risk. It needs to end, and our county and its workforce need to be able to rebuild. It seems this is our only path forward. While I was very excited to take a nice break from campaigning, looks like there's still miles to go before we sleep. So we will see everybody back in the field. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Ron Snow, followed by Chris Caviggioli. Ron, please unmute and begin.
Supervisors, I would hope you see by the statements of both Supervisors Mueller and Corzo that you should not that you should deny this agenda item. It has a sunset clause because it's for a specific thing, not a global things that should be incorporated into the charter. The fact that it will expire is proof of that. The agenda item is about making as a charter change, yet comments about the problematic investigation or the sheriff in particular are being suppressed. This is an agenda item about putting something on the ballot, yet public comment about the sheriff was suppressed. If people want the sheriff removed, then we have a real procedure in place to do that. Supervisors should not spend millions, especially when those same dollars could be used on other important programs, as was stated today. Supervisors should allow voters to recall. They should not circumvent that process.
Thank you. Chris Caviggioli, followed by Pat Willard. Chris, please unmute and begin.
Yes, thanks. I have 3 points. One of them is the investigation was already done. I actually read it. So that's already been done. It's proven there is evidence of her criminality. So, and it's very serious. So that's number one. Number two is that if you have someone in office that's doing something really bad, let's say just fictionally, let me just say she goes to the elementary school with a handgun and starts shooting little children, you'd probably not wait for voters to come and, put something on a ballot. You'd have to act right away. If she's doing criminal stuff, we should act right away and get rid of her immediately. And then the third thing, and this is important too, let's not bring in racism. Let's not bring in the fact of her background or her skin color and stuff like that. That's called racism. We have something in our laws called non-discrimination. We do not discriminate about skin color and ethnic background. So just don't even bring that up. That's not relevant. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. We'll now go to Pat Willard. Pat, please unmute and begin.
I've read about 200 pages of Judge Cordell's report, and that illustrates what I call the real world has come to San Mateo County. In addition, I would urge the Board of Supervisors to recast the civilian oversight of the Sheriff's Office as exists in Los Angeles County, where it does not allow for the sheriff to appoint members of the commission, nor the sheriff's select 4 advisors overseeing the oversight committee as currently exists. Also, an ordinance for a permanent inspector general, exactly that as stated in the Los Angeles County document that I sent to all of the members of this board, which this inspector general attends the oversight commission and responds to its votes for inspections when necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Alberto, your hand was raised and lowered. So Alberto, if you did intend to speak, please raise your hand again. James Brown, please unmute and begin.
Good morning. Thank you. This action is unnecessary. It is a drastic change to the California charter, to the county charter. It's unnecessary and it's opposed by the California State Sheriff's Association. I'm sure you've received their letter. This is personal against Sheriff Corpus. If it wasn't, then the county would have called for resignations when Sheriff Horsley had 250 pounds of explosives stolen, or when Sheriff Monks and Bolanos were caught in a brothel with underage prostitutes and narcotics, or when Bolanos sent armed deputies to extradite a citizen of another state on the behest of one of his donors, or when contraband was smuggled to a prisoner under Bolanos's watch, and the contractor was allowed to continue, his company was allowed to continue working for the county, or when Bolanos's campaign manager stole funds from a children's program, or Caligay wasted millions of dollars in PPE that was wasted by sitting in the rain. No resignations were called for then. And this report is extremely biased. It mentions Bob McSweeney 18 times, and I know Bob McSweeney, and I spoke to him. He was never interviewed. He does not know Victor, that it was alleged that he does. And the name of the company is completely wrong, that Judge Cordell mentioned that it is the same company. You didn't interview him. You should have interviewed him. This entire report is flawed and biased. Thank you.
Thank you. Alberto, please unmute and begin. Alberto, if you can unmute.
Muy buenos días.
Oh, un momento, por favor.
Sí.
Victor, if you can please interpret and allow Alberto to know he has the 3-minute timer.
Buenos días, Alberto. Habla Víctor Hernández, traductor aquí
A
del
2-minute
San Mateo.
timer. Apology.
Oye,
Mire,
permíteme un momentito.
Sí.
Vamos haciéndolo de una manera consecutiva para que todo el mundo pueda escuchar lo que tengas que decir, ¿de acuerdo?
Claro, claro.
Bueno, adelante, por favor.
Mire, mi objetivo es que nuestra comunidad estamos muy preocupados por lo que está pasando con la señorita Cristina Corpus.
So my objective today here is that I want to let you know that our community is very worried with Miss Cristina Corpus.
Ya que yo soy una persona que vivo en el perímetro de la Ferros hace 20 años y tengo muchos años de conocerla a ella.
So I actually live in the Fair Oaks area and for 20 years, and I've known her for a long time.
Y nuestro objetivo es de que la comunidad la conoce y tiene mucha confianza en ella.
My goal is that the community actually knows her. ¿Podría repetir, por favor?
Nuestro objetivo es que nuestra comunidad la conoce y tiene mucha confianza en ella.
So the goal here is that the community knows her and really trusts her.
¿Y por qué digo esto? Porque la comunidad le dio el voto de confianza a ella, porque tenemos muchísimos años que la conocemos y sabemos la eficacia de su trabajo que está haciendo con nuestra comunidad. Por eso es que estamos muy sorprendidos.
So the question is, because we've known her for such a long time, we've actually given her the vote of confidence because many people have known her for a long time and the efficiency of her work.
Ya que ella no fue puesta por terceras personas, ella fue puesta por nuestra comunidad. Y nuestra comunidad está muy preocupada por lo que está pasando ella.
So she was not put in a position by others, but by the community, and so that's why the community is very concerned for that.
Yo tomé esta decisión de hablar a supervisores del condado porque yo trabajo para mi iglesia, yo tengo 10 años trabajando para nuestra iglesia y nuestra comunidad cada rato me está comunicando lo que está pasando.
So I've decided to talk about this because I'm involved with my church. I've been involved with my church for 10 years, and our community constantly talks about this.
Yo sé que ustedes como supervisores la tienen que apoyar porque nuestra comunidad confía en ustedes.
And I know as the Board of Supervisors, you have to support her because our community trusts in you.
Y nosotros confiamos en ellas.
And we trust in her.
Eso es todo, gracias y espero que la apoyen porque ella es muy buena persona para nuestra comunidad y nuestra comunidad está muy preocupada.
So thank you, that's all I have. I hope that you support her because she's a good person and our community is very concerned.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to our next speaker, Stephen Booker. Please unmute and begin.
Thank you for allowing me this time to speak. Stephen Booker, Half Moon Bay resident, and I'm here today with reservations. The sheriff's office is a very powerful position, and I speak in support of Christina Corpus, along the same sentiments as James Brown and Dan Stegnick. But as a Black man in America, I'm afraid of intimidation and intimidated by the sheriff's office. As far as their deputies, if I stand with Christina Corpus and the possible retaliation when I'm out on the streets in Half Moon Bay or in San Mateo, like James Brown said, there's been many other incidences in the sheriff's office before Christina Corpus got there. She promised to clean up the good old boy system and has been met with resistance. And like I said, once again, this is hard for me to do. I have respect for the Board of Supervisors and our elected officials, but also have a lot of respect for Christina and her staff. And I stand in support with them and believe that the county should not spend money unnecessarily on a recall election. The voters haven't called for it, and you're gonna have people that stand with her and people that stand against her, just like you will with any elected official. So therefore, I support Christina Corpus, and I stand with Dan and James Brown and think that the county should not have a recall election. When we can't give our employees raises, but we can spend millions and millions of dollars on a recall election, I think that's asinine and it's not in the best interest of the county. Once again, I thank you for your time, and I respect each and every one of you, but I do not agree with this recall election. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. We'll now go to our phone caller that had a lowered hand when it was raised. Caller ending in 357. Please unmute.
Through the clerk?
Yes.
How many speakers do we have left?
After this is our last named speaker, which was Elizabeth Quiroz.
Great, thank you so much.
And that would be the last, of course. Caller, you can press *6 to unmute, and this will be the last attempt. 357, caller. Okay. We'll now go to our last named speaker, Elizabeth Quiroz. Please unmute and begin.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hi. So my name's Elizabeth Quiroz, and I am a survivor leader in the Bay Area. And, you know, I'm just going to share, I know I don't have a lot of time, but I want to share a little bit of my backstory. So I am a survivor of human trafficking, and I was trafficked in San Mateo and in San Francisco for many years and had a lot of bad interaction with law enforcement in San Mateo County. And so when I came across Sheriff Christina Corpus, she was the only law enforcement that showed me compassion and love and supported me and gave me hope. And so because of that interaction, it restored my hope with law enforcement. And so now I'm an advocate. I'm a survivor leader in the Bay, and I'm bringing awareness around human trafficking. And I've been working with Sheriff Christina Corpus for years, and I've known her for a very long time. And so to hear what's going on breaks my heart. So she's a wonderful person to me. I support her in general because she's an amazing person and all the work she's done. And so I just hope this is resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. President, we have one hand raised, but they're not part of the final names that were called. I defer to you.
Let's take this last remote comment.
Okay, Albert Yam, please unmute and begin.
Hi, Board of Supervisors. I think this is not necessary because basically you're trying to take away the voters' rights in this situation. What it should be on the March ballot is an effort to put on a recall election for an elected official. What you're trying to do is set a precedent and also change the dynamics of sheriffs. Future sheriffs is going to be impacted and worry about how they undertake the obligations of the job of the fear that board members or a small group of constituents could decide the fate. You're losing the independency, and this is a power grab. And I urge you not to consider this and take more of the voter rights away from us. This should be a voter matter, not a board of supervisor matter.
Thank you. Mr. Vice President, the phone caller appears to have raised their hand again, the one that was part of the list. Would you like me to attempt that one again?
Sure, and my understanding is through the clerk, we have one in-person comment. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Great. So why don't we take the comment online?
Okay. Caller ending in 357, please unmute. And if you're calling by phone, I think you can press *6 to unmute.
Hi. Great. Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, my name is Chris Perez. I live in San Bruno. I'm one of the 82,000 voters who voted for Sheriff Corpus and elected her to office. The item you're considering to put on the ballot is unnecessary and oversteps your authority. It's a slap in the face to the voters. The sheriff is elected by the people. She is not appointed by you. She won her election in June 2022 by over 13 points. She crushed her opponent, who was truly corrupt. She challenged the Good Old Boys Club, and her candidacy was going to be risky to take if she lost, but she prevailed. Let's go back in the time machine and remember all the scandals that Bolanos was involved in and embarrassed us with, from the Vegas brothel and the Batmobile incident. Some folks were calling you guys before to remove Bolanos. And the late, great Don Horsley, a very respected supervisor and a former sheriff, said this to a reporter: what we can do is extremely limited. This is the Constitution of California. The sheriff is an elected officer. We cannot remove her from office, remove them from office. He was speaking of Bolanos at the time. So I support Sheriff Corpus. This is a bad idea. We don't need the cost of a special election, and it's unnecessary. The recall is your mechanism to take out a elected official by the voters, not by you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Get back to you, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. We do have one speaker from Chambers, Ron Saucy. Yes, please.
Yes, my name is Roland, and it's the first time that I ever appeared here. And I support Sheriff Corpus. I campaigned for her. I went from door to door delivering flag. And I agree with all of these people that came up on the board, on the speaker, to support her. You're giving all these people only a minute to speak, but yet you allow the clown to speak for several minutes. And I think that a lot of these people would like to speak for much longer. And I think that you trying to eliminate these people or getting her kicked out of office when she went into the office to clean the place, and she's doing it, and apparently you guys don't like it because she's doing a good job, and she's been doing a good job. She's been doing a good job in the North Fair Oak. I live in the North Fair Oak, and I know she's doing a good job. So why don't you let her do her job as she's supposed to? And why don't you look back on what you guys did with Bolano was there? You didn't do anything. He ran you guys. You didn't run him. So why are you trying to crucify some poor lady that's trying to do a good job, and she's been doing a good job. Thank you.
Mr. Vice President, I do have one written comment. So there were several comments that were sent yesterday, which were emailed to the board and also made publicly available. I'll be really quick. This last written comment came from Sandra McKee, senior citizen from Redwood City. I'm wondering if the Board of Supervisors and other participants in the sheriff investigation should have additional security protections. Remember what happened with the SF Board of Supervisors removal of then Supervisor Dan White back in the 80s when Mayor Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk were shot dead by Dan White for revenge. I wonder how stable this sheriff is at this time, and with the power of gun and badge, could be a risk for other law enforcement officials and herself as her anger escalates. Let's end a public comment.
Great. Thank you very much. We want to thank those who made public comment. I'll bring this back to the board for discussion. If there is no discussion, I'll take a motion on the item.
I'd like to say a few words.
Okay.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for coming and giving their comments today. I want to name that what we see happen in these chambers, everyone gets a voice, and they are not retaliated against for sharing their voice, even when they disagree. You may have noticed that we don't have any sheriff's employees here, and let me tell you why. They are still working under our current sheriff and her former employee, and they are in fear, and it is our board's duty to protect them and our community at large. I think it's important that every single member who is concerned about this charter amendment and who has not read the report, because if you have, then you would know that there are hard facts, there is clear evidence, there is documentation proving the corruption that is happening right now in the sheriff's office. Personally, I am a truth teller. I will say it even when I disagree with others. I will say it even when it hurts. I will be the first to admit when I made a mistake, and I will do it right now. I supported Sheriff Christina Corpus. I knocked on thousands of doors for her and myself, and I would not pull back my support for no reason. Please believe that. Sheriff Corpus was given every opportunity to succeed. She was given support no other elected official was given. She was given the funding for a transition team because we knew that there may have been resistance in the sheriff's office from the former sheriff's friends, etc. But let me tell you something that maybe not everyone realizes. When you promise change, when you tell the community that you are going to create change, there will always be resistance. And you know how you overcome that resistance? By doing a good job, by being ethical, by being fair, by being impartial, by leading with integrity and courage and honesty. That is not what happened. And trust me, I am equally as disappointed. But as someone who supported her, I see it now as my duty to lead our community through this because people are being harmed and they are in fear, and not just fear for no reason. Actual fear, actual validated fear. There are things that are in that report around suppressed rifles being brought into the sheriff's office that no member of the executive sheriff's team has the training or certifications to possess. And yet that happened last month in October through the direction of Victor Anye. If that is not another act of intimidation to every other employee in that office, I don't know what is. By every account, Sheriff Corpus was given multiple opportunities to right her ship. I wish I could tell people why we are in this situation and why she chose and continues to choose to lie to our community, to lie to the media. In time, the truth always comes out. The truth always comes out. And it is this county and this Board of Supervisors who will have to clean her mess. And whoever steps in after she is removed, they will have to clean her mess. And it will take millions of dollars, yes. You know why? Because when you actually have people being harmed, and it will eventually be proven in a court of law, the county is on the hook to pay out for all of those lawsuits. And that's going to happen. And it will be no one else's responsibilities but her. She created those situations. She has put our community at risk. She is misspending tax dollars. And I want to address something that I heard come up several times. I have been in office on this board, and so has Supervisor Mueller, for almost 2 years, exactly the same amount of time as Sheriff Corpus. I will speak for us and even this current board. Former sheriffs and the things that they did or did not do, Supervisor Ray Mueller and I were not here for. We don't know all of the facts that led to the board at those times making those decisions. I was one of Sheriff Bolaños's biggest critics. And I would have stood against him as I have to stand against Sheriff Corpus now, because I will not stand by and see corruption and abuse of power happen and not do everything I can to protect our community and our staff. I would have done it then, I'm gonna do it now, and if I have to knock on thousands of doors like I did last time, I will. Because it's the right thing to do, and I know it's an ugly truth. I know it's hard for people that supported her to really take in and believe. But please, look at the facts. Look at the facts, read the report, look at the evidence for yourself, come to your own conclusions. You may have had a good history with her in the past. I did too, I supported her. I believed in her. She also, at one point, restored my faith in law enforcement. But when you are given new information and new facts, you have to analyze that. We need to come together as a community, and we will. And I'm gonna say it right now. I've said it to her directly. I've said it at this dais before. She needs to step down. That is the right thing to do. And I also just want to say for the record that the charter amendment in the ordinance that we have before us right now, it has a sunset clause. I would personally support it without a sunset clause. Because the truth is, we do have a history of questionable leadership in the sheriff's office. But it has a sunset clause right now, and I will support it in any way because we need a way out of this for our community. And I'll just reiterate one more time. The reason you don't see any sheriff's staff right now giving public comment is because they are working in an environment of fear and retaliation. So I just want to say one more thing. Para la comunidad que no entiende lo que está pasando, yo quiero que sepan que lo que estamos haciendo no es algo fácil. El liderazgo del alguacil lastimosamente no está cumpliendo con las promesas que hizo. Está abusando su poder y el liderazgo que tiene. Y no solo está dañando a los empleados de la oficina del alguacil. Oh, sorry, Victor.
Please continue.
Okay. Pero también está dividiendo nuestra comunidad ahorita. Hay muchas personas que han sido impactadas por esto y los buenos hechos que ella hizo en el pasado, nadie se los va a quitar, pero también tenemos que ver la realidad. Hay hechos, hay pruebas. La corrupción y el abuso de poder no se tiene que permitir de nadie, no de nuestra comunidad ni de cualquier otra persona. Y yo me comprometo ahorita para ir a reunirme con quien quiera para hablar de lo que está pasando aquí. Porque realmente esto es algo difícil y es una distracción de cómo nos podemos unir para protegernos unos al otro en los próximos meses. Porque sabemos que van a haber ataques a nuestra comunidad y esto no puede seguir siendo una distracción. Gracias. Thank you.
Supervisor Campbell.
Supervisor Mueller.
Just real briefly, I want to speak to all those who spoke today, who expressed their respect and support for the sheriff. I want to say I hear you. And I want to say it's incredibly hard when someone who you respect and you care about does something that disappoints you. But I have to say to you, I'm in that same boat. And unfortunately, the case against the sheriff continues to get stronger. For example, and I don't know if I'm supposed to share this, but I'll share it, the homophobic slurs text that she went to great length to deny to the day we presented the report. We have the phone now, and we verified she sent that text. It continues to strengthen as we go through all of the evidence presented. The strength of that 400-page report is standing up. And I know it's hard to accept. It's hard for us to accept, but we've had longer to do so. So I ask you to please take a look at that report and go along with us, because you'll get to where I am now, where someone I respected and cared about, I am deeply disappointed in, and I no longer believe she is fit to serve this county. I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that for my colleagues. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. There was, Ms. Corzo was speaking in Spanish. If you wouldn't mind a translation, Victor.
Thank you, Vice President. I think Supervisor Corzo was just reiterating what she had previously said in English, but I do just want to provide some brief interpretation. So we can't stand for this division. No one's taking away from her good works that she's done in the past, but I am absolutely committed to talk to anybody about this as in regards to what's happening here in order to protect ourselves and protect the community. And we can't have these types of distractions.
There is one last point also to those who support her. Could you ask her to please sit for sworn deposition testimony to address the allegations? If she's willing to make the statement to you that the things in that report are not true, ask her why she won't sit under oath and say that.
Thank you very much. With all that said, does the supervisor want to make a motion to introduce this ordinance calling for an election to amend the charter and to waive the reading of the ordinance in its entirety?
I'd like to make sure Supervisor Slocum has a chance to chime in if he would like before we put a motion on the floor.
Supervisor Slocum, would you?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I was muted. I do appreciate the opportunity. I think a lot has been said here by Supervisor Mueller and Supervisor Corzo, and I really don't have a lot to add. I support the comments that they've made and the perspectives that they've shared. I do have a question that I'll direct to the county attorney in a moment or two. But, you know, each of us took an oath of office, as did the sheriff. And I think when we talk about ethics, honesty, transparency, abuse of power, those to me are in clear violation of the oath that we all took. This has been, as the two supervisors know and the rest of us know, an enormous time drain, taking us all away from the important business of the county. Just look at the testimony this morning of the Redwood House. You know, that's a significant mental health issue. It requires time to deal with. And unfortunately, just an inordinate amount of time is being spent and has been spent and will continue to be spent on this issue. I find it very interesting, just to follow up on Supervisor Mueller's comment. I made a note here. Let's invite the sheriff once again to come and give sworn testimony under oath, give her a chance to tell her side of the story and answer our questions. I think that would be extremely important. There's a reason why so far she has not chosen to do that. I think the reason that she stated in the media was she'll do it when she gets an attorney. Well, so be it. I think she has an attorney. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would invite her to come and give testimony to us and answer questions. I, as like the rest of you, watch her press conferences and interviews, and there are things that are said that are just not true, just not true. So with that, I really don't have anything to add to the comments that have been made. I would ask a question of the county attorney. Assuming we pass this ballot measure today, it has to be read, as I understand it, a second time here pretty quickly to meet the election code deadlines. And the question is then, if we take those two votes and we vote to place it on the ballot, could a future board, that is specifically the new board coming in early January, could they vote to reverse the decisions that we've made?
Supervisor Slocum, so the question is whether or not the board that is as constituted in January could take action to rescind the action to put this matter on the ballot. Is that the question?
Yes, that is the question. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, there's a limited amount of time actually after the board acts to put something on the ballot. As you were noting, the board would have to, at its next regular meeting on December 3rd, adopt the ordinance. Today it would be an introduction of the ordinance. The board would have to vote to, at its next regular meeting on December 3rd, vote to adopt the ordinance. There's a limited amount of time thereafter that the board has to act to remove something from the ballot. I believe it's 83 days prior to the election. So I don't think from a timing perspective that would be possible, actually.
Yes, thank you. I also wanted to talk about, some of the speakers talked about, let's not spend the millions of dollars for this election. And from my perspective, the number of lawsuits that we possibly face and will face far exceeds the cost of this election. So somebody said it was 4.8 million. I'm not sure if that's accurate or not. I know it's very expensive, but I would just suggest following up on Supervisor Corzo's point about the pending lawsuits that will be coming to the county in the future. So I'm prepared to support the motion, but I'll let Supervisor Mueller or Corzo make the motion and second and go from there.
Just like to just briefly state that this is an extraordinary measure, but this is an extraordinary time, and it calls for decisive action by the Board of Supervisors. So I'm supportive of the motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Sure. Supervisor Pine?
Yes.
Thank you. Supervisor Corzo?
Yes.
Supervisor Mueller?
Yes.
Supervisor Slocum?
Yes.
Thank you. Supervisor Canepa?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. We'll be moving on. We